I want to talk about the 2020 election. Now, in October 2016, doing all the reading and watching and stuff I do politically, I came to the conclusion that Trump was going to win. And I actually said that on Facebook. I predicted that Trump was going to win the election, which even as late as October, most people, very few people were doing. I think what the New York Times had Hillary at a 96% chance of winning. Uh, Nate Silver had her overwhelming odds. I mean, there were a handful of people, but not many predicting that Trump was going to win. This time, I'm going to predict earlier, August 2019, way earlier. And why do I think Trump's going to win? Now, let me explain. Since the beginning of the 20th century, most American presidents have won second terms. I mean, there's been a few. Teddy Roosevelt didn't get one because he dropped out. He decided not to run, turned it over to Taft. And then Taft didn't get a second term because then Roosevelt ran against him and they split the Republican vote. Nothing like that's going to happen this time. Uh, Herbert Hoover didn't get a second term. We had the Great Depression. I don't count Ford because Ford was never elected in the first place for a first term. And even that, he's barely lost to Jimmy Carter. Carter didn't win a second term, but Carter had double-digit inflation, double-digit unemployment, what they used to call the misery index, where you combined the two numbers and it was 25, 26, 27. It was terrible. He'd been, taken advantage of by the Soviets, made a fool of by the Iranians, and he lost. He lost to Ronald Reagan. Reagan won two terms. George Bush won one term and then lost to Clinton. But again, Bush had the problem with Perot. Perot, who was saying that NAFTA would be this big sucking sound. NAFTA is going to suck all the jobs out of the country. Turned out Perot was right. So Bush had a faltering economy. Clinton had a lot going for him. So you could say, okay, well, there's George Bush Sr. He didn't get a second term, but he pissed a lot of people off, including me. I mean, I was throwing stuff at the TV when he signed. You remember his pledge, no new taxes, and then he signed a tax hike. And I think a lot of people just didn't, Republicans who just fed up with and didn't vote for him. So he did lose. So there's one so far, and now we're almost in the 21st century. Clinton won two terms. George Bush the younger won two terms. Barack Obama won two terms, and now Donald Trump's president. So just looking at that, unless the economy totally implodes or there's some massive international disaster overseas, which could happen. All these things could happen uh, between now and November 2020. But if they don't, I would say that just on the basis of that, Trump's likely to get reelected. The other thing he has going for him, and the reason I've suddenly decided that I'd make the prediction this early is I watched the last four Democratic debates, and there's nobody up there. I mean, if you just look at the thing and you strip it down, it's all about. You might think that the biggest voting constituency in this country are illegal aliens, but they don't vote. Some of them aren't even over the border yet, and yet I don't think their policy on the border refugees is going to fare very well. Most people in the country, do not think we should have open borders. They claim they're not for open borders, but when you get down to it, that's basically what it is. Civil penalties. Civil penalties. What's that mean? They'll give you a $100 ticket if you cross the border illegally. I mean, this is nonsense. And if you offer people free healthcare, free education, uh, let them into the country, you're just going to stimulate more illegal refugees. They're doing everything they can to get more people coming, which just creates a bigger problem. Which I have to assume they're either A, very stupid, or B, it's exactly what they want. But if you look at the polls, most people aren't really happy with this. Most people in the country don't really like sanctuary cities. Uh, most people in the country, aren't for reparations. I know there's some people who want to, want to tax the rich because they hate the rich. There are always people like that. But I'm not rich. I mean, I know, I have a friend who makes more than I do, and he got a bigger tax cut than I got. Doesn't bother me. He's busting his ass just as much as I am. I don't care that he got more money. He pays more in taxes. He should get more money. And of course, the people who pay no taxes didn't get any tax break. But get a job, work, pay taxes, and then you'll get a tax break. If you don't pay taxes, but of course, 46% of people in this country don't pay taxes. So I know the Democrats, will get lots of votes by promising to tax this and tax that, because that, 46% of the population is not going to cost them anything. They're going to get stuff, and they're going to get free tuition, they're going to get free this. But if you watch the debates, I mean, first of all, it's just this continuous thing of, Trump's a racist. The people who vote for him are racists. It's a sure way to try to convince me I shouldn't vote for Trump is to tell me I'm a racist. And we're going to spend all this money. We're going to spend a trillion here and a trillion there and a trillion here and a trillion there and free this and free that and free this and free that. And there's no vision for the country other than a bunch of people getting free shit from the government. Womb to the tomb, as they used to call it. They're going to give free health care. And they lie. And the media never calls them out. We're going to give you, everybody's going to get Medicare, Medicare for all. If you work, I get Medicare. I'm 66, I get Medicare. But if you work, you pay for Medicare. It's not free. And so all these people they're going to extend Medicare to are working. So they're not going to get free health care. I pay, $900 a month for Medicare and the supplemental policies. Well, basically, my ECU policy is a supplemental policy. But if I didn't have that, if I didn't have health care through my employer, I'd be paying $900,000 a month for Medicare, which it pays the bills, but it's not all that good. But and it just goes on and on and on. And the other things, none of them. I mean, I didn't like Barack Obama that much. I at times actually, first time around, I actually considered voting for Barack Obama because two reasons. I didn't like Romney. I thought he was not Romney, McCain the first time around. I was never a fan of McCain, never a fan of Romney either. But I mean, the first time around, the thing that attracted me to Obama, as much as I actually for quite a while was considering voting for him, was he was charismatic. He appeared to be a leader. He had seemed to have a vision. He had he exuded something. Much as Trump does to me now, and Reagan did once. Bush never really did, either of the Bushes. But so I'm not saying you need this something to get elected, but it helps. And none of the Democrats strike me. I mean, it's not one of them I listen to and I think, that's not a bad argument. Like Clinton, I never voted for Clinton either time, but both times I almost voted for Clinton because I thought he was, he was actually seemed to do pretty well, and the country did pretty well under Clinton. There's no way to deny that. I think it might have done a little better if he hadn't done a couple of things, but on the whole, he was a very charismatic guy. You couldn't help but watch, him and his wife and the music and the people happy and sort of get taken into it. I don't get that with any of these people. Bernie Sanders, uh, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, they look like just, I don't know. They remind me of Hillary, who was a loser. Some of them remind me of Dukakis, who was a loser, Curry, who was a loser. None of these people have any charisma as leaders. They're just dullards, and they just all they want to do is give the store away. We'll give you this. I'll give you that. No, I'll give you more. Oh, the Earth's going to be destroyed in 12 years. No, 10 years. No, 18 months. Or actually, it's too late already. We should head for the hills, as Andrew Yang said, I guess last Wednesday. We all need to move inland because the ocean's coming to get us. Uh, I mean, it's really sad that the Green New Deal, we're gonna we're gonna do all these things in 10 years. I mean, if that's what it takes for us to survive, we're gonna die because it's never going to get done. These things are never going to happen. But I mean, this pushing this stuff just is going to ensure that the Democrats are going to lose, and that's another reason I think that Trump's going to win, no matter who becomes the nominee. They don't have the presence to defeat this guy. I can't see any of these people getting 33,000, 10,000 people into our arena to listen to him or her speak. The other reason is, so you can say, well, what about the polls? I mean, the polls show, Trump losing to many of these people. But a little while ago, he was losing to all. Now he's only losing to a few of them. The problem with these polls is early polls in any election. I mean, if I went back to 2004 when Kerry ran against Bush. In the summer of 2003, before the 2004 election, Kerry was leading Bush in every poll. And he was leading him right up into the fall. And then as he got close to the election, suddenly Kerry starts falling behind. And he lost pretty, it wasn't a landslide, but he lost, it was a pretty easy win for Bush in the end, despite the fact that right up until the end, some of the national polls had him winning. And that's the other thing you have to ask yourself about the polls. We know virtually all the polls had Hillary winning. Ergo, they were all wrong. So why should we trust them now when they tell us that Bernie Sanders could beat Trump, or whomever, Warren could beat Trump? I mean, what's their track record? Why do we worry about what they think anymore? The other problem with Trump's polling is what's there's actually a political science term for it. I think it's called the Bradley effect. And the Bradley effect comes from it was a mayor's race in Los Angeles when his name was Tom Bradley, was the first black mayor of Los Angeles, and he didn't do all that well, and he was up for re-election, and there was a white candidate I think running against him. I forget who it was, and race became an issue. If you weren't going to vote for Tom Bradley to be re-elected as mayor of Los Angeles, you're a racist. And so race became an issue, and opposition to Bradley became uh, tied to racism. That's the only reason Tom wasn't getting your vote, was because you were a racist. And it worked, not in the sense that it helped Tom get reelected, but it helped screw up the polls. Okay, you hear day in and day out, if you don't support Tom Bradley, you're a racist. If I don't support Tom Bradley, I'm a racist. If I don't support Tom Bradley, I'm a racist. If I don't support Tom Bradley, I'm a racist. Phone rings, pollster on the other end of the line. Are you going to vote for Tom Bradley? Yeah, yeah. Because you don't want the guy on the other end of the line, even though you don't know him. People, being called a racist was really something big then. And nobody wants to be thought of as a racist, even by somebody that's anonymous. So you lie. You say, oh, yeah, I'm going to vote for Tom Bradley. Even the exit polls showed Bradley winning. When people came out of the polls, who'd you vote for? Tom Bradley, Tom Bradley, Tom Bradley. Tom Bradley's going to win re-election. They were announcing that based on the exit polls. Tom Bradley lost, and he lost by a fairly substantial margin. And it's since been known as the Bradley effect, that people lie to pollsters. Now, what you have the same thing here with Trump. If you support Trump, you're a racist. I mean, yesterday the story started, if you intend to vote for Trump, it means you're a racist. So the only way I can get out of being classified as a racist is if I vote for like Bernie Sanders, or Elizabeth Warren, or Andrew Yang. Then I'm not a racist. But with the Bradley effect is, if a pollster calls me and asks me, I'm going to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to vote for Andrew Yang, or I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. I mean, she's not an African American, but she's viewed as an African American. Or I'm going to vote for Cory Booker. Um, and then when I get in the poll, I'm vote for whomever I want. I mean, I can remember the build up to the Florida primary. People, I didn't vote for Trump. I voted for Marco Rubio. And there were people asking me, I'm not voting for Trump. I'm voting for Rubio because you didn't want to be accused of being a Trump supporter. But that's the Bradley effect. So the question is, if you tell the voters that if you support Trump, you're a racist, then you ask them if they're going to vote for Trump. Some of them won't tell you the truth because they don't want to be thought of as racist. And then when election time comes, they'll go in and they'll vote for Trump. So we don't know what Trump's level of support is. We know that in 2016, his level of actual support was higher than what he was showing in the polls. So he did not have a 96% chance of losing. So, but we listen to the polls today, and it's really stupid. And the polls, I mean, the poll I watch, what you have to do with polls, whichever one you want to watch is fine. I think some are better than others. Obviously, people used to put a lot of stock in Nate Silver, but after he said Trump had a 96% or Hillary had 96% chance of winning, obviously he's not as good as he thought he was or how people thought he was. But I, follow one poll and don't worry about what it actually says. Just see if the trends are going up or down. That's the way to watch a poll because they're all different. I mean, the one I watch is Rasmussen. I watch Rasmussen because going back to the 2000 election, Rasmussen has been usually within a point or two of the actual result, usually about 1 point. So he's usually, I don't even think he called it for Trump. So he was off a bit, but he was closer than everybody else. I mean, if you looked at his odds, it was like a toss up, not 96% Hillary. So I watch Rasmussen, but you can watch other polls if you want to keep an eye on them, but just notice which way they go. I mean, you can't take a poll as a snapshot. One guy's here, one guy's here. You have to look at it as where they are next month and the next month and the next month. Is the gap closing? Is somebody pulling ahead? That's what you have to keep your eye on. In my view, the worst poll from looking at results and predictions from polls is the Fox News poll. I just totally ignored that. I mean, I watch Fox News, but whoever's doing their polling, I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. I don't know. I don't know how they do it. So, I say that not based on anything other than the results. I mean, if you look at Fox News, if they predict X, it's going to be Y. I mean, they never seem to get it right. Other polls are better or almost as bad, but the one I watch is Rasmussen. But if you like, if you like CBS poll, CBS New York Times poll, or the Washington Post, it's ABC or NBC poll, that's fine. But watch it, and only watch one because they're all over the place. I mean, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average, I mean, look at the polls. One poll will have a guy. We just had an election down here in Florida. The Real Clear Politics average had the Republican losing. But if you look at the polls, I mean, some of them losing by, he won by less than a point. But some of the polls had him losing by 7 or 8 points. They were, on average, they were off like 7 points. But here again, he was being called Trump supporter and a racist. So you don't know what's going on. So I'm not fazed at all by the polls because and if you look at the Rasmussen poll when Trump became president, he was actually pretty high up in support, as most presidents are when they take over. And then he dipped down into like the high 30s and the low 40s. And now he's usually bouncing around between 46 and 51%, which tells me he's probably, at least 5 points higher than that. Now keep in mind, he only got like 46, I think, percent of the vote in 2016. So he's probably already above where he was. He's going to pull more votes this time. And, I don't know how some of the other Democrats will do with turnout. So on the whole, I think, Trump, unless something particularly bad happens, Trump's going to get reelected. And I don't see any of that coming. The economy is still growing. I'm not rich, so I don't make out there, but My retirement has seen a substantial increase since 2016, even though the Democrats were predicting if Trump won, the economy was going to collapse, the stock market would collapse. It didn't. And, I thought, I've already paired about 2 years off the number of years I thought I had to work to retire. So I can retire 2 years earlier, which to me is a big deal because, given my medical conditions, 2 years, 2 years may be a substantial portion of my remaining life. Trump's tackling and trying to speed up the whole process of kidney transplantation, which is great for me. I mean, it's a matter of life and death. So, my tax rate gave me more money, the tax cuts. I don't, like I said, I don't get as much as other people, but it doesn't bother me. I get something. Um, I'm not complaining about that. My partner Salim is an entrepreneur, and her business is up because things are speeding up. All of her friends who are, Asians in business, their businesses are doing well. Everything's speeding up. So I think things are going pretty well for all the doomsday we've heard since. I mean, it's been Armageddon since Trump was, any day now World War III was going to start. Well, we're more than halfway through his term, and World War III hasn't started. I think he's finally doing some things we need to do with China, and I think most people see that. I mean, he's doing the things, many of the things he promised to do, and the things he's promised that he hasn't done is because he's been blocked consistently by the courts and by the Democrats. So I think he's the way things are going, and things don't change, and the Democrats go on the way that they are. He's going to get reelected, and probably, I'm not saying he's going to win a landslide, but he'll probably be reelected more easily than he was elected in 2016. And I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that. And I know there'll be people who will say, no, 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 he's destined to lose, just as they were saying he was destined to lose in 2016. But he didn't lose, and they were all wrong. And the things they said would happen haven't happened. So keep America great again. I think that's what's going to happen. This guy has not lost steam. I mean, you see these people waiting out in the heat or the rain to see him speak and to go to a rally. And the issues. I mean, you look at the media and they distort all this stuff. But I mean, you have the Democrats, since Trump's been in charge, become president. The Democrats have defended MS-13. The Democrats are defending illegal immigration. The Democrats are defending rats. I mean, he said nasty things about Baltimore. And everybody said, oh my God, the president said horrible things about Baltimore. Then you go through and you look at the Baltimore Sun, they have run story after story after story about how bad Baltimore is, calling for reform, calling for this. PBS ran a special on the rat problem in Baltimore. PBS, is that a campaign arm of the Trump campaign? I mean, all Trump's doing is repeating what he sees in the press. And I mean, he said something what a nasty place Baltimore was, and you call it the Trump effect. When he said nasty things about Brussels, everybody jumped all over. And then a couple months later, terrorists from Brussels killed like over 100 people in Paris and in Brussels. They came from Molenbeek, the jihadists. So they're almost on schedule. Sweden, which seemed to be this paradise up there of humanity and brotherly love. He says something about Sweden, and sure enough, within a couple of weeks, boom, 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 there's fire bombings and buildings are blowing up. And people are being killed, women are being raped. It's almost on cue. So this time he said something about Baltimore. And since he posted those things, Cummings' house was burglarized. And was it the deputy police chief and it was out on a date and he got mugged? I mean, it's like events happen to prove that Trump was right. That's the Trump effect. When somebody goes after him for saying something, it turns out to be true. And Baltimore, like many urban cities, is not alone. But Baltimore, I think, does have like the first or second highest murder rate in the country. Murders, not number of murders, murders per 100,000 citizens. Because the population of Baltimore is like in decline. That's true. I think they're number one or number two in violent crime in the country. I mean, that's not good. And yes, part of Cummings District is a gerrymandered district that looks like an L, and up here where all these rich people live, but their votes you know wiped out by all the poor black people in the other part of the district that he controls. And that's what we're talking about. Baltimore's a declining city, and there's many cities that are declining, and Baltimore has been run by the Democrats for, I don't think there's been a Republican mayor. I think there was one in 67 for one term. I don't even think he finished his term. But going back to the 40s, it's basically been solid Democrats, including uh, Nancy Pelosi's father was a mayor out there. Maybe her husband was too at one point. I can't remember. So, I mean, Baltimore's not on the upswing. And again, it's not alone. There's plenty of others. But if you look at most of the cities that are going down the shithole, they don't just have a Democratic mayor. They've had Democratic leadership. Philadelphia, for example. I think the last Republican, I was born in 1951, and I think that's when the last Republican left office, 51 or 52. They've had nothing but Democrats since then. And the population's gone, they lost like 1 million people. And because most of the 1 million people they lost were taxpayers because they kept hiking up taxes, and the taxpayers move out of the city. And the only people who are left are the people who live off city services. So the city gets poorer and poorer and poorer. And they finally stopped, I guess in the 1980s, they stopped raising the city wage tax, which was up to 5%, no deductions, 5% right off the top. So if you had a company in Philadelphia and you moved into Montgomery County or Bucks County, Chester County, and you took your workers with you, they all got a 5% raise. Not a bad deal. And that's why a lot of companies moved out of Philadelphia. And even at that, if you live in New Jersey, because I did, and you work in Philadelphia, you can write your 5% off against your New Jersey taxes because they have an agreement that allows that. Basically, New Jersey gets screwed because every year they lost 5% of my income that they would have otherwise gotten because it was going over to Philadelphia. So that hurts, especially South Jersey is hurt by that. Anyway, I'm losing track of what I'm talking about here. Trump's reelection. I think he's going to be reelected. I think it'll be easier than it was in 2016. And again, something disastrous could happen between now and then, and he'll end up losing. But if things don't change dramatically, to me, all the signs point to a Trump reelection. So we'll see what happens down the road.